Welcome back to Good Morning Greyhounds. Today we are talking about Etchings Magazine with the Etchings editors. And this weekend we actually have the Etchings launch party, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
That is awesome. So what kinds of things go into that?
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Pretty much like we kind of have a set schedule throughout the school year, and so we start off with getting all the submissions in, voting on them, and then we have a time where we're actually designing the magazine, and then after the magazine is complete, we're like, all right, we need to celebrate this, we're going to make this launch party. And so there's a lot of different steps that go into it. We contact all the contributors because we want them there and we want them to be able to speak about their pieces. And so we offer to all contributors, they can talk about their piece at the launch party. They can, if it's a photograph or something of the sort, they can just talk about it, kind of talk about their process. If it's a prose piece, a poem, they can read a section of it or also talk about it. So reaching out to them, seeing if they want to talk about their pieces. But then we also have to actually, do some event planning sort of aspects. So, just like any other event, deciding the room, deciding what we want the space to look like, deciding what activities we want to do, because we don't want this to be boring. It's a party. And so we want it to be fun. We want there to be lots of food, music, activities, and just like a time to celebrate the magazine.
Yeah. And is everybody welcome to come to this event?
Yeah, so obviously we're still inviting students, faculty, staff, alumni, all our contributors to the magazine. We definitely have people invite their family, their friends. It's a pretty open event. It's LP credit, so if you need LP credit, yeah, exactly. So we definitely pull in a more a broader crowd with the LP credit too, because then it's not everyone who's just submitting to the magazine and coming with their submitters, but it's also people who just need LP credit and found a really cool event, and then maybe we can draw them in to submit to the magazine later.
Yeah, that would be amazing to get more people into that environment. That'd be awesome. So this is your anniversary issue, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
So it's the 35th issue. Like I said, we went in 2013, we went to publishing 2 issues a year. So this is 35.1, we'll have 35.2 next semester. So it's gonna say anniversary issue on the cover. We're gonna kind of celebrate it as an anniversary issue during the launch party. Do you have anything else?
Yeah. So one of the aspects of the magazine is an award section, and so I think at least 2 pieces in the magazine every year are awarded the Dolores Armentrout Award, and so we always choose a judge for that as well. And our judge this year is actually Elizabeth Weber, who was one of the magazine advisor for Etchings for several years actually.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so it's kind of cool to sort of bring her back, and we also are hoping to see a lot of alumni at the launch party, and so it's sort of kicking it back, and it's we have an older advisor with us and we have all these alumni, and so just sort of a celebration and looking back at the past issues.
Yeah, that is super cool to bring everything back together. And I noticed you brought past issues with you actually. So do you want to talk about kind of the formatting of those past issues?
Yeah, of course. So we have 3 different issues, one of which has Sydney's art on the cover. But pretty much the cover is always a piece that was accepted into the magazine. And so once we have accepted all of our pieces, we kind of look and, we might find one piece that's oh, this is the best piece, but it might not work well for a cover. And so we have to find that piece that we're all right, what would look best on the cover? And then we spend some time, people do different designs, and we kind of finalize it, and that's how we get the cover. And then the inside, we just have all the basic stuff, and we have the staff names of everyone on there. Then we go into the table contents with all of our pieces, and then at the beginning we have the awards that we talked about, and then it just kind of goes straight into the magazine. We don't have it sectioned off into these are the art pieces and then these are the poems, and so that's another part of sort of the design process, is we have to decide what the best order would be. How do we want our readers to experience this magazine, and what order would do that in the best way? And so we'll also, I know this year all the editors made a spreadsheet of their order that we think would be best, and then Allie here. I don't know what magic she did, but she was like, all right, let me format, put them all together, and here's our order.
It's always a couple hours worth of like going through our one spreadsheet.
Because I mean, you'll have some pieces where it's like, ooh, this art piece, like it's two completely separate contributors, but you're like, this art piece and this poem goes so well together, so we're gonna put them right next to each other. And so we don't just want to like throw them in an order. We want it to be deliberate in the way that we order the magazine. And so we have all the pieces in the magazine, and then at the end we have all of our contributor bios. And so just to learn a little more about who's submitting to this magazine. And then on the back, of course, you have all the contributors as well.
Yeah. And just on like the design aspect of things too, because I was like the design editor the past 2 semesters, like it's really fun to look at like just like the readability of the magazine overall, like adding in like visual art in between like stories, so it's not just like 80 pages of like short stories and poems.
Yes.
And then all the photos, like we try to add like sporadically, like put in, not sporadically, it's definitely planned, but like we try to put in the photos in between like all the like short stories, so and like all the poems, and like it's like kind of a break for your eyes. And do you want to show them our like content warnings actually? Because like we like putting in pieces that like have like are like about social issues, because like we think it's very important to have like a variety of voices heard. So we actually have like designed pages with content warnings with like a yellow bar, and then it has like the content warning at the top and telling you what the content warning is. So then like we're trying to be inclusive but not like trigger people with like basically stories that could be triggering.
And it's something we just started this issue 34.2 because I think it might have been like one of the first times we kind of encountered that issue where we're like, we have these amazing pieces, but we want to be respectful of people's trauma, people's feelings, but they're important issues, and we want to put them in our magazine. And so that was a really long conversation, and it's something that like we really cared about, and I think it shows by like how much we talked about it. It was a really big conversation. And so we're doing the same thing this year again as well. And so, you know, just when people are flipping through the magazine, you see those sort of yellow pages on the outside, and if you know that you're maybe prone to that, you can just skip right over it. And so we want people who maybe have those triggers to still be able to enjoy our magazine.
And I think that's really beneficial as a reader myself, to be able to know what might be coming in the magazine. So you kind of talked about the process of how you guys go through and put everything together as a class. Do you guys want to go a little bit more in detail in that?
I mean, I can go into as much detail as you want. I mean, obviously, like Emma kind of talked about like the submissions process, where like we have our like submissions come into us. We like have a deadline each semester for the submissions, and we can talk about the deadline in like a minute for like this next issue. But once we get the submissions, Emma puts them in batches for us. We vote on them, and then after we have everything accepted to the magazine, that's when like the design editors start taking like the table of contents that we've decided on, so like the order that pieces are going to go in, and they start putting them in like a master file format with Adobe InDesign. So they have to be quite knowledgeable of InDesign, but it's kind of fun because the past couple of semesters we've had like one like veteran design editor, and then we've had like a partner with them who's like learning more of like the design aspects of like InDesign, so then they can kind of take over the next semester, or they can take over like a few semesters from now. So really it's just making sure all the pieces are like ready to go into the magazine, so like their formatting is correct, we don't have like any weird like, I don't know, like spacing aspects to it, and then we like put them in the magazine, and then we spend countless hours and weeks proofreading the magazine, because obviously like we want to make sure we're not spelling anyone's name wrong, anyone's like title wrong. We want to try to like be as like authentic and correct as we like possibly can. So after everything's put in the magazine, we start like sending out PDFs of the master file to all the editors who are supposed to read it, take notes on like issues that they find, make sure we're like adhering to Chicago style for literary magazines. It's a very fun process, honestly. Yeah.
That's awesome. It sounds like a lot goes into it, and I'm proud of both of you for pushing through that. So you said that you wanted to talk a little bit about the submissions process for the next semester.
Yeah, so I mean, submissions already open pretty much. Like if you, so say like you missed the deadline this semester, I mean, the day after, you can still submit, and that is going to go into our batch for the coming semester. And so this next issue, which is going to be 35.2, the deadline for that is January 30th. And so once again, you just go to, you can go to the Etchings website, and there's a submittable link there, or just etchings.submittable.com. And then you can submit your pieces until January 30th, or even after January 30th, because once again, no matter really when you submit, you're going to be considered for the magazine. It just depends what issue you want to be in.
Yeah, so if you miss the deadline, it's just going to roll over to the next magazine's deadline. Yeah. So you'll be in there somewhere. Yeah.
That's awesome that you guys still consider people even after the deadline, even if it's for the next issue. I think that's super cool that you're including everybody in a way. So what kinds of things do you specifically look for when you're looking through all of these submissions? Like anything specific that sparks your interest, or what advice would you have, I guess, for those submitting?
That's a good question.
That's rough.
Tough
because
question.
I think something like I always tell people about the magazine is that like magazines are very objective, and like you may submit something that is like the best poem in the world. You may submit it to a magazine, and the magazine's like, we don't want this. And you just have to realize that that's not a character of your work. It's just what the magazine is looking for. It's the opinions of the editors. And so I think that's something I always try and push to people, because getting your stuff rejected doesn't mean that like, oh, it's awful, it's so bad. It means that maybe it just wasn't the editors wanted. Like there's just so much that goes into it, and so you know, giving like one set of things like, well, if you do this, we're definitely going to accept you. It's a little difficult, but you know, just submitting what you think, like something that you're proud of is what I always say. I mean, I've submitted to the magazine a lot as well, and it's stuff that I'm really proud of, and there have been multiple times where I've got rejected, and you know, the first time it was kind of like that mindset where it's like, man, like that must have been awful. But then you just realize that, you know, maybe the piece wasn't even at its full potential. I mean, there's something that I've edited and submitted over and over again. It finally got accepted this issue. And so, yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point too, because like Emma said, like it is like very like subjective. Like we are unbiased because it is a blind submissions process, so we don't know whose piece is whose. But that doesn't mean that like, if Emma writes about like flowers and I don't like flowers, then like that means like it's gonna like maybe turn me off the piece a little bit more. So it is like kind of like up to like what we see. And the same thing happened to me. I submitted a piece to one of the issues, and then I like it got rejected. I revised it, I resubmitted it, and it just happened to be a different staff on the magazine because some of the people graduated and it got accepted that time. So sometimes it just depends on the people. Sometimes it depends on like you revising the piece and like really working on it. I think like one piece of advice I do have is just like trying to put like care and effort into your pieces, because we don't have time to like copy edit anyone's pieces because we have like so much coming in, and we have such a tight turnaround that like if you have a lot of spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, we don't fix that. So then obviously if your piece is just like riddled with like spelling, grammar, punctuation issues, there's a slimmer chance that we'll probably accept it, just because like I said, like we want our magazine to look professional. We submit it to national awards, and we don't have time to like edit everyone's piece.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
Yeah.
Very fair. So you guys both kind of mentioned your personal experiences with submitting to the magazine. Do you want to go a little bit more into detail in that, and what does that mean to you guys?
Oh gosh. So the first time I submitted was actually the first time I was on staff, which was with 34.1. And I think I submitted like, I want to say 3 pieces, and I had 2 of them that were rejected, and I was a sophomore at that point. I had just because I just became an English major, and so in my head I was like, they just don't understand, like this piece is so good, like why didn't it get accepted, like I don't understand. And now, like, you know, once it gets rejected, you go back and you read that piece and you're like, oh, this isn't as great as I thought it was. And so it's kind of just like taking that like humility and the sense that, you know, maybe this just isn't the draft that is going to be accepted, you know? And so I think personally, getting rejected can sometimes be like a really good thing, because it's like nowadays when I get rejected, I look at a piece and I wonder, all right, what can I do to revise this to make it even better, to resubmit? And so, you know, getting accepted is a really great experience because it's very validating, but I think rejection is also an aspect where you're like, okay, there's something I can change about this, and I'm going to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I think it's like also important to keep in mind that like we're all emerging writers, so we aren't like established writers who have like a million publications by like one of like the big 5 publishing companies. Like we're all like kind of trying to find our voices, we're trying to find our writing style. So like I said, I also got rejected like the first like time I tried submitting to Etchings, and like I revised stuff, I resubmitted. That time I got accepted, but it's keeping in mind that like all of us are just like, we're not infallible to like having our own like personal beliefs, like leaking through our like poems and like short stories. So I think like making sure like you stay true to yourself, but also like Emma said, like making sure like you try to objectively look at your pieces and think about like, okay, like is this like believable, is this like engaging, and trying to look at like to see like if you can edit it and revise it in another way, or like seeking like other readers to help you like edit your pieces too. Because honestly, like the revision process usually like never stops. It's always ongoing. So it's which is fun if you really love writing and like, or if you love like designing artwork or something, because then like you're constantly like learning new techniques and you're learning like just more about the revision process. But I mean, even if you get rejected, same thing we've said, you should keep resubmitting. Not that you should keep resubmitting the same exact piece, like maybe again like try to edit or revise it, but you like should keep resubmitting. You should like look for other magazines too, that like publish undergraduate students, that publish like emerging writers or like emerging like artists, just to like branch out a little bit more, like see if there's like other people who like appreciate your voice more than other magazines.
Yeah, I definitely, from my own personal experiences, have experienced similar things that you guys have mentioned, and I think it has helped me to come out of my comfort zone a little bit, so I would definitely recommend doing the things that you guys just mentioned as well. So you mentioned a lot of revising goes into the process. How was that like for this most recent issue, especially with it being your anniversary issue?
I mean, with it being like the anniversary issue, I feel like besides it being like kind of a more celebratory issue, like the process of like revising everything was pretty much the same. We were still like looking at all the pieces, making sure we were, like I said, like trying to like spell all the contributors' name correctly because your name is important. Trying to like spell like everyone's title correctly. I'm just like looking at making sure we're like adhering to Chicago style. I don't really know if there was anything special for this issue.
I don't think so.
For revisions, no.
No.
Yeah.
It's as difficult as ever.
Yeah, like I said, it's just kind of hours of like sending like PDFs of the master file back and forth, having people like create revision notes, and then that was something fun that we also got to do, like compiling everyone's revision notes into one document for the design editors, so then they didn't have like 6 different documents of revisions to go through, and just trying to support them because they're like also the ones like doing like the heavy work with the design process of like taking all like the submissions, putting them in, doing all the revisions if they like things have been spelled incorrectly, just trying to make sure it's like the best magazine that we can create.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the launch party being this weekend, are there any details that we may have missed going over that you guys would like to share?
I mean, so the launch party is this Sunday, December 4th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. in UND Hall. And so we have a really big space. We're hoping for a lot of people. It's going to be super fun. We have a lot of activities that people can do, sort of little contests throughout the night, as well as there's going to be a photo booth for photo opportunities, and then lots of food. We always make sure that there's like food there because we feel like it draws people in.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And so, I mean, you got food and LP credit. Like, what more can you want?
Right.
And then, yeah, we're just going to have all of our contributors speak. Elizabeth Weber is going to be there over Zoom, and so she's going to have the opportunity to present the award that she judged for, and so we'll get to learn who those winners are. But yeah, I think that's about it.
It is like semi-formal encouraged just because like we're trying to like encourage like a more like anniversary like kind of esque atmosphere, but that also is like encouraged. So like if you don't show up like semi-formally dressed, well, obviously you're still gonna get in either way, because it like I think just like the magazine or party is about like trying to include people, trying to like just make sure like people feel like recognized, and just having like a very positive atmosphere overall.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part about your guys' magazine is that it's so inclusive, and then everybody's welcome to contribute, to come see it. It's pretty awesome. I think we kind of talked about this earlier, but who is eligible to contribute to the next issue?
Yeah, so that's students, staff, faculty, and alumni. And I think there's also like the misconception that, you know, it's only English students or it's only art students. But I mean, we accept everyone. I mean, I know there's been people that have submitted before that they're like, I'm an anthropology major, but I write amazing poetry. And it's like, it's so cool because I think, you know, some people, they have this passion for poetry or short story writing or photography or art, but they're not able to personally pursue that in college. And so this is sort of an opportunity for them to, you know, this craft that they're usually like amazing at, and have it recognized in a way that they aren't usually allowed to have it recognized.
Yeah, I think that's another favorite part about the magazine for me as well. I'm personally am a communication major, and I don't really get to pursue my art, so that's my escape is to submit to
and you
magazine.
submitted, and then you were on the cover of our
Exactly.
magazine.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. That is all we have for this episode of Good Morning Greyhounds. Be sure to join us next week and to view the Etchings launch party.